Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny panel. During the live broadcast, members and officers are asked to please ensure that mobile phones are placed in silent mode and that microphones are switched off whilst not in use. The first item on today's agenda is the appointment of the chair for the municipal year 2024-25. Do I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Gowler. Are there any alternative proposals? Oh, sorry, yeah. Can you please say who you're nominating? Thank you. And then the seconder. I'm jumping the gun there. Are there any alternative proposals, please? Thank you. It is therefore proposed that Councillor Maureen Davis is appointed as the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny panel for this municipal year. Is that agreed? Great. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for showing your confidence in me again. I will do everything to deserve it. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is to get member services to report the apologies, please.
Good morning. We have apologies from Councillor Hay and Councillor Carney. Thank you.
Agenda item 3 is the appointment of the Vice Chair for the municipal year 24-25. I would like to nominate Councillor Elizabeth Sennett-Clough. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Yeah, I'd like to propose Councillor Gersner. He's been Vice Chair for the previous year. Don't see any reason to suddenly change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder for that proposal? Thank you. I'm being advised that we need to have a vote then for those in favour of Councillor Sennett-Clough to be Vice Chair. Can you please raise your hands? Okay. So I don't need that. So, yeah, so that is a majority, so we don't need to go to a second vote. I therefore say congratulations to Elizabeth, and you are duly appointed. Thank you. Agenda item 4. We're being asked to approve the public minutes at pages 3 to 12 of the public agenda pack as a correct record of the meeting which took place on the 4th of March 24. Can I ask any member who does not agree with the minutes to indicate now? No, thank you. I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as a correct record of the meeting, so they are now agreed. Thank you. Item 5 is urgent items. There are no urgent items for consideration today. Item 6. Are there any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting? If you have anything to declare, please can you inform the meeting now? Councillor Gersner.
I'll have to give my apologies. I might have to leave the meeting early to go to another meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Foyce-Baird.
Thank you. Just to let you know that I do subscribe to Freedom Leisure services, but I think
Agenda item 7 is an update on previous actions arising from previous meetings of this panel. There's currently one outstanding matter, and member services are in the process of obtaining a response. Now, I think we had that response last night. I don't know if you've all seen. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Booth, did you want to?
Had the opportunity to have a look at it yet, so
Okay.
I'd like to digest it.
Okay, thank you. To receive a presentation from Freedom Leisure, the council's leisure provider, I'd like to welcome Matt Wicking, Andy Harris, Dan Palfreman. You each introduce yourselves because I've got the names, but I don't know the faces to the names. Thank you. So when you're ready, if you'd like to go ahead with your presentation, thank you.
Great stuff, thank you very much. Good to see you all, thanks for inviting us along again. Some familiar faces. I'm Matt Wickham, Chief Operating Officer for Freedom. To my right is Dan Palfreman, who's our Area Manager for the contract in Fenland, and to his right is Andy Harris, our Regional Manager, that provides some more local support as well. We've got a few slides to run through. I'm just going to do a bit of an introduction, especially for those that might not be familiar with us, but thank you for being a customer of ours as well, to be fair. And then I'll hand over to Dan to give a bit more detail about some of the good stuff that's been going on. So Freedom Leisure, and apologies if you've heard me say this before, but we're a not-for-profit leisure trust. As a result, we don't have shareholders. Everything that we do goes back into the communities that we serve. So there's no shareholders taking money out of the business, and I think it's not unique, but it is certainly a fairly positive selling point for our partners, because you can be assured that any surpluses then are reinvested. I guess the question of surpluses has been a discussion that we haven't had too many times over recent years, given COVID and utility crisis. But things are looking more positive, and I think that's hopefully going to come through some of the slides, and may well answer some of the questions that you've had and certainly had previously about financial viability and stability. As a business, we operate over 125 sites on behalf of 30 local authority partners now, so we've grown significantly, even in the years that we've been working with you since 2018. We've grown, and I think that's our plan, is to continue to grow. That's the model that works for us. We're in England, we're in Wales. There's probably no aspirations to go much further in terms of Scotland or Ireland, but certainly north in the country is something that will come up. In fact, we only recently bid for Northumberland, and you can't go much further north before you get to Scotland. We weren't successful, unfortunately, but that's kind of a sign of our appetite for our real growth. Our actual focus and our commitment as an organisation hasn't really changed. I think it hasn't changed for many years. I've been with Freedom for quite a long time now, 19 years actually, and our focus has pretty much been the same all along. It's around our colleagues, our customers and our clients as an absolute focus, and then probably for the last 10 years I've had a stronger environmental sustainability focus as well. Underpinning all of that, however, we need to be viable, and that's kind of our starting point, is make sure we're financially stable, and then we can really do some of the good community work that we're sort of most proud of, and Dan will touch on some of that shortly. I think we've got some questions that you've had asked, but happy to take questions at the end or as we go through, so feel free. But I think if I pass over to Dan, we didn't actually click through any slides, Dan, did we? Did it not work?
No, we've got IT on the way.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
You should look in IT.
There we go. That wasn't me. There was someone doing
Oh, I
that.
see. Oh. Right.
I'd like to take credit for fixing it.
Just blind faith. Got it. On the screen, by magic, through the IT, are some of the numbers for the last year, which they showcase the journey that the contract's been on off the back of the pandemic and the energy crisis. There's some numbers here that show the participation is increasing. We've got good numbers going through the doors, and then there's some key visit numbers there as well. The measures that we use just to give a flavour for what's going on in the venues. The obvious one being active participation. That's the number of people that come into our venues and are actively participating. So not spectating, not audiences, but physically doing things within our venues. And then that's split down into the two main groups there is our fitness offer, so that's our GMR classes, what we refer to as the dry side activities, and then the swim visits, which, interestingly, this partnership is fairly equal. We have, we'll go on to the slide in a minute, in terms of the aquatic proposition, so our swimming pools are doing very, very well. We are struggling with the fitness to recover back to the levels that we anticipated we would be had there not been a pandemic or an energy crisis, and that's a key focus for us. The second row of numbers, they're not a row there, they're the fitness numbers there, are membership types for fitness, and we do measure keenly the group activity, because that's a very important activity for us because of the social side of it. That's people coming together, exercising as a group within our facilities. And then we've got a swim school there, which we're very proud of that number. That's a lot of, so that's children learning to swim with us. So they're on a swim school within our pools learning to swim, and that's a very, very strong number and continues to grow. In terms of thank you. In terms of the financial summary, it's up there for everyone to see. We had a good performance when you consider the challenges that we've had over the last couple of years. What's key for me to share with you there is
Come out different on that screen as well, so I'm not quite sure.
But I'll read through the numbers anyway. So in terms of our position against bid, so there's obviously a bid position written for the length of the contract, and we anticipate at the beginning of that process that we'll be at this position for that number. So our fitness membership is behind where we expected to be, but that's completely and utterly down to the change in the environment that we're working in off the back of the challenges. But what's really pleasing is our swimming income, supported mainly by our LTS, our Learn to Swim scheme, is very, very strong indeed. And then the obvious blight in our operation at the minute is the utility cost is significantly more than we anticipated back in when we first started in 2018. We didn't foresee the utility cost being quite so high, and there's been an awful lot of work around there and support, which has been brilliant. Excellent. So the next slide on here is it's about our colleagues, as Matt referred to, one of our focus groups. That's our staff, that's our team, the people that work for us. So I know there's some questions fielded on this that we'll happily answer, but it's what we do is we do an annual survey with our team, and it's across the whole of the organisation, and then the information is split down into regions and then areas. And since the point of writing this, we've been able to extract data specifically for the Fenland contract and the venues themselves. So the two key ones for us that we've put are the ones that are on the screen in terms of proud to work for freedom, and I enjoy doing the job, I enjoy providing the service. So what's been quite compelling is that we have a national overview, we have a regional and an area, and then of course the partnership itself, the contract. And whilst they're largely in line with what you see on screen there for Fenland specifically, they're slightly stronger, but it gives you a good feel of where we're at with our team off the back of a very challenging year. And I've sat in this room before and been quite proud to say that the team largely that we work with now, the vast majority of those guys were with us at point of transfer. They came over, they bought into what we do. There will be a natural attrition of staff as people progress and life changes. The next bit on the screen is this is how we communicate, or a flavour of how we communicate what we do with our customers. So we have a national approach, a national agenda, a national plan for what we would like to see go out on our social media channels through our app, through our website, through physical posters in the venue and around the communities. So this gives you a flavour of what that's about, what we're about, to differentiate us from different operators. We're very proud of our Learn to Swim, for example, which is very, very strong in the contract, because it's a very important life skill, especially given the amount of water around in this area. and it also helps with learning. It helps build, confidence, independence, and those are the words used in the top banner there. We also very much bespoke what our messages are to the audience there. So again, I'm very proud to be able to say that I know that a few of those pictures on there were actually our Fenland users, because we've got a good example within the Fenland venues of how we contribute to a person's well-being, whether it be physical health or emotional. And it's all about the person, it's all about the individual. It's a very bespoke offer. It even varies between the venues. We have very different offers at the different venues across the patch. And then there's just an example of how we try to acquire an interest and feed people within the community into our memberships, into our offers. It's about the social side of things. So there's a lot of stats out there to say that you're more likely to stay exercising if you do it with a friend, if you do it with a group. Hence, as I said before, the group exercise measures are important to us. And again, that's reflected in our messaging that goes out. Next slide, which I'm sure people have got really good eyesight, they'll be able to see that. So what we've put up there it's what we're not suggesting by any means is it's only 4-star, only 5-star feedback out there. This is very much a sample of how we feel our customer, or sharing what our customers overall feel about us. So it is positive stuff out there at the minute, which is really great. And what comes out and comes through on every piece of feedback that we get from our customers is the staff. They really engage, they really welcome, they really value our staff. And they also like the leisure centres that they come to as well, which is always nice to hear. And it's when you hear the words passionate and excellent and heartfelt, that's not to take away from the challenges we do have, because we don't get everything right all the time. There are some times where we could do a bit better, but this is very much an overview of a feel of how we are getting on in the contract, in the partnership. Next slides for us it's around energy, because we are very passionate about this. Matt and I are now certified as carbon literate, having qualified recently as almost experts in the field, I would say. And that just kind of shows the focus we have as a group, as an organisation, on reducing our energy utilities, because that's the biggest way that we're able to reduce our carbon footprint and have a positive effect, or try and have a smaller negative effect on the environment through the carbon dioxide that we put into the atmosphere, mainly through our emissions. Our venues are very thirsty in terms of energy requirements, electricity and gas and water. So we've invested significantly in that part of the business over the last few years, and I'm quite proud to say I think Freedom are leading the way with that when you compare to other operators across the country, and I'm sure the guys on my left and right would support that. And that's reflected in some of the work that we've done locally, and it's not merely turning things down, making things cooler. It's a proactive approach with technology, with people, with processes, with programming, and what we're able to show on the screen there is the results of that. So a reduction in gas and electricity, and therefore carbon dioxide. So it's a good flavour of what we're focusing on. And those are the few slides that we've presented and put together to give you guys a flavour of what's happened over the last year. Been a challenging year. There is more to do. There are improvements to make, but generally quite proud of what we're achieving here. It's in my humble opinion and biased opinion, we're doing well. That's a different order. So what I've put on the screen there is, it's about opportunity, and I speak to Phil quite regularly about this. So in neighbouring partnerships, we've really focused on our activity on referral, our exercise referral. So that's the services that we offer to improve people's lives through leisure, and hopefully help with rehabilitation, with medical conditions through helping them through exercise. And what I've put it on there because I really do feel that it's something that we could exploit, for want of a better description, next year, because we've seen some real benefits in neighbouring contracts where we've got a real buy-in from the community. They understand what we're about, and it's something that we can offer. So I just wanted to put something on there for the focus for next year, because it's there to be had. We've got some great testimonials close to home that are being used as case studies nationally, not just with Freedom, but with other national outfits that are kind of looking at what we're doing, and that's a really good idea. We're engaging with that part of the community, that demographic, and we're having a tangible positive impact on that. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much. Well, we're open for questions then. Who wants to go first? Go. Turn that round. Okay.
Hello, Freedom, welcome. Matt and Dan, I was really interested in listening to what you had to say. And you know, it's like everything. You mentioned about viability, Matt, and Dan, you talking about a challenging year. My first question, I've got 3 questions. So my first question takes that into consideration. Based on your survey data, your current operational model and predictions, and the hopefully positive impact improvements across the leisure centres in this district will be, how confident, and I know that's a broad question, but how confident are you of the financial viability of the centres going forward?
I'll take that one. Fair question. I think we've started to answer that through the presentation, and I think now we're coming through the darker times, if you like, through COVID and utility crisis, and thanks to support that we've had from all of our partners, including Fenland District Council, so thank you again for that. But also through support through Sport England and through central government, through the Swimming Pool Support Fund phase 1 that we received last year. That's put us into a position, actually, we are above where we forecast to be in our bids. So when we put our tender in early 2018, 2017, perhaps it was that long ago, even though we started at the end of 2018, we are on track on an annual basis with those numbers. So that gives us a really good positive platform. I think the opportunity for us, and there is opportunities, and whilst it's great, we've talked about some of the good stuff, there's always things we can do better. We're not sitting here saying we're perfect. Please don't take that as what we've said. But there's opportunities for growth. So we haven't got back to where we were pre-COVID for membership numbers, as Dan referred to. Well, that's an opportunity. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. You could argue that lots of people are walking, running in the open air, and because that's all they could do during COVID. There's lots more competition that's opened up, and you know, there lies a challenge for us as an industry anyway. But there's still, the population is still growing, and therefore we still have the opportunity to get back to those numbers. So we're confident we can. Our focus is absolutely on that. But I think that the last slide that Dan showed, which was talking about GP referral, is actually a market that's relatively untapped. And just because somebody isn't in the best of health doesn't mean to say they don't want to exercise. And it also doesn't mean to say they can't afford to. It just haven't got the right pathways to give access to those facilities. And that's a large amount of our population. So there's real opportunity there. Corporately, we've just recently appointed our Head of Healthy Communities. Coincidentally, actually, she lives in Cambridgeshire and has worked closely with Fenland District Council previously. And that's a real focus for her role, is focusing on those harder to reach groups, because we know that only a certain amount of the population commits to physical activity. And we need to then try and tap into the other 80% potentially that aren't. So we see it as a positive opportunity. We've got a budget that works, so that's a good start. And everything's looking good in that direction and at the minute. But there is challenges, there really is. And I was chatting with Phil before the meeting. Some of our contracts are working very well. Some of our contracts are more challenging because of the timing around utilities and COVID that came in. but corporately and locally, we're confident with the financials.
Thank you for that detailed explanation.
Your next question, I've got one that's relative to what he's just said. Do you mind?
Yeah, Maureen's just going to come in. now.
Sorry, I just got. I hate it when you get beyond one bit and then someone asks a question. So I just with Elizabeth's patience. You said that you're not back to your pre-COVID levels on the gym side of things. I find that a little bit concerning when you look around and there are plenty of other private gyms, personal trainers, and they're all saying how well they're doing and business is good. And you're sitting here telling us, well, business is not as good as it could be. Do you have an overall theory of what's wrong?
How long have you got? I do. I mean, a really good example is that there is so many more personal trainers, as an example, because it's the example you gave, including an ex-member of staff that trooped across from Fenland, that's set up on her own, that's working 40 hours a week delivering personal training. And that's to customers that probably were our customers at one point, and then now, because of COVID, because of concerns about going into a big environment, working out in groups, which was the initial concerns, obviously post-COVID, probably not helped about the potential for this the summer spike in COVID as well. That won't help us, and so that's competition that's opened up that wasn't there. A lot of people, when we closed for COVID, a lot of people took their classes online, so people bought into online instruction. In actual fact, I'm sure you've all heard about the success of Peloton during COVID. They've actually suffered significantly since because they overinvested, because I think they thought their rise was going to continue once the world opened up again. And funny enough, people wanted to get back into leisure centres. So I think that's from the fitness point of view, but I think it's worth also putting into context. Fitness for us is actually only a third at maximum of our business. So the fitness membership side is a third, swimming is about a third, and the rest of everything else we do is about a third as well. So one area not succeeding doesn't make us a failure. It means we need to overachieve in other areas, and thankfully in swimming across the business, actually, we absolutely are. But equally, there is some examples where we're back to and above pre-COVID membership numbers as well. Fenland is just not one of those. So we've got to do more work, got to work harder to re-engage the community and to get them back into the facilities.
Thank you.
So that actually provides a nice segue on to my second question, which is about going forward. And I spoke in my original question about the improvements that are going to be made across the district in the leisure centres. So how much involvement do you as Freedom have in that? I mean, do you have an established relationship with Alliance, for example? And are you satisfied with the plans that you've seen so far?
Yeah, in terms of Alliance, we've just finished a project with Alliance in Brighton. It was a 650,000 soft play. It was a squash court conversion to soft play, very successful, exceeding numbers already. And we love a wet summer in leisure, and that's seemingly what we're getting. So that's working quite well for us. We've also operate a site in Somerset in Chard, which was an Alliance build in partnership with the council. So we were there as their operating partners. So in terms of Alliance, yeah, done lots of work with them. Got a good relationship with Sarah Watts, who's the MD. So there's no problems with that at all. I think that works for a certain model. There's lots of other models, but that's an established model that works and with support, absolutely. In terms of the plan, I mean, I'm not sure if Dan can talk more about the local plans and what you've seen.
Yeah, so the arrangement is, because we've got such a good relationship with Phil and his team, Phil and I have an open dialogue with plans, whether they be provisional, whether they be just a concept, whether they just be, what do you think about this? And that's how the conversation starts. And some of those are really quite simple. In my view, that won't work in our venue in Fenland, off the information that I know locally, reinforced by the general managers, for example. Might look great on paper, it's just not going to work. So we do that locally, and we have those conversations regularly. And then the support mechanism available to me is very much through the operational line, for example. It is Andy through to our ops director through to Matt operation, and we can soundboard that. And we've also got a business development expert that I've worked with for years with Freedom and before Freedom, that we can say, we can have that conversation and say, look, this is what is being presented, and it's all data informed. It's all based on latent demand, for example, whether it be a physical, whether it be a gym latent demand or an aquatics latent demand, and that's based on real data on the demographic, the geography, the road network, and all those sorts of things. So we're confident that the relationship that we have allows us to, when something is proposed, that it's the right thing to propose. That will work specifically within Freedom, and we've got examples of it working elsewhere within in Fenland, and then examples of that working elsewhere in Freedom.
I think if I just add to that, in terms of our experience as well, we've delivered either directly or in partnership with our local authorities well over £200 million of capital projects across all of our estate, including in Fenland, specifically at Hudson. But we've got that experience to draw upon, so hopefully we can contribute positively to any plans based on that vast experience as well.
So just for clarity then, it seems to me that you've got a good relationship that's in three parts, with Alliance, yourselves and Fenland, sort of working collaboration, talking to each other about the plans going forward, broad plans, not just the improvement plans, but broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have three?
I have another question.
Yeah, go on.
My final question is, obviously you spoke, Matt, about the fact that you're a not-for-profit and all the rest of it. So in relation to that point that you made, how do you feel about the provision of space within the leisure centres that you run for community group use, both on a free of charge and a rental basis?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we need to assess all of our space on its own merits ultimately, and there will be some opportunity. We don't do an awful lot of free of charge, I'll be really honest, because we are here to make a surplus that we can reinvest. And as I said, we have to get to that sort of zero before we can then start to reinvest. So we do engage with lots of groups, lots of community groups that use us, but the majority of those expect to pay, and they do pay. There is subsidised rates for some of those groups. I think the angle potentially that could be better used is around sort of more of a health hub as a concept. We're seeing that more across the UK now, where leisure centres are just one part of the facility. You may have bolt-on services, be that doctor's surgeries or health referral and so on. And we're participating in some of those. In fact, we've just opened up some empty space in a facility we operate in Gloucester to a whole range of health services. So we've now got people that wouldn't otherwise use your facility coming in to engage with those services, and then we can engage them into health and leisure as part of that. So I think there's always opportunities, but it's got to be done on a site-by-site basis, and it does need to be part of a wider plan actually, and that's probably county-wide as well as just district-wide.
Thanks for your answer. Definitely the shared space model, I think, is a very productive way forward, but obviously it is based on the individual circumstances. Just want to pull you up on one thing that you said about sometimes community groups are able to use your facilities without charge. How do you determine who pays and who doesn't?
I think it's very much on a needs analysis basis. The majority can actually access funding, so sometimes it's about us supporting them accessing funding to pay for the services. So whilst it's free to them, there is still funding that comes into the operation, because generally speaking, any space that we use, it has a commercial value. Now that might be £1 or it might be £100 an hour, depending on what it might be. So what we need to try and do is find that balance. And I think through some of the health and community work we're doing, we're trying to tap into lots of central UK-wide funding that could then help those groups access facilities. And so we've got lots of examples. We're doing a mental health project at the moment, actually, which is due to be rolled out soon, which has got some central funding that they can then access our facilities. So whilst they're not paying, and the people that need to access the service aren't paying, we're still getting a minimum amount of funding, but getting something for it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Councillor Nawaz?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think some of these points may have been at least partly explored. My first observation was the satisfaction of staff. I mean, these are not necessarily criticisms, but rather to draw your attention to towards improving the situation. 25% of your staff do not take pride in working for you. That's quite a significant figure. That is point one. Secondly, how many female staff do you have, and how many at the senior management level? The rationale of this question is that if you have a better sort of cross-section of society, with women being 51 to 52% of the general population, input into the policy will then perhaps deliver better results. And I have a couple of other observations, Chair. Can I? It is a little bit disappointing that I know COVID as a mitigation, but I think going to myself being an avid sort of gym user, the ones that I attend, I'm aware of, do have a very healthy growth, increase in usage. And I do wonder if you could benefit from a bit more vigorous marketing strategies, particularly given that there has been a significant increase in population, particularly that I'm aware of in Fenland, in Whittlesea, for example, new housing developments, and the section of society that is growing, moving into these new housing projects are the ones who are more likely to be wanting to use these facilities. But despite that, if there hasn't been significant growth, then perhaps you could focus on that too. And finally, and I know you've touched upon this, but I think connection between public health and physical exercises is of increasing importance. You may be aware that it is expected very soon that obesity will overtake heart disease as number one killer, at least in the UK, if not worldwide. So, and of course, heart disease in itself has connections with obesity as well as diabetes. And diabetes is proving to be very, very expensive, and its complications for the NHS, taking a very massive part of the budget, when it can relatively easily and inexpensively be dealt with through physical activities. So the suggestion I'm making is that perhaps you could work even to a greater extent with public health, with the ICS, that is integrated care systems, with health and well-being groups, which are also part of the ICS, as well as the primary care networks, i.e. the GPs when they come together, primary care networks, not only with reference to physical well-being, but also mental health can very substantially benefit from these activities. So with the children being involved at an early age and being educated about the linkage between physical well-being and mental well-being. So these are just a suggestion perhaps you could explore. Thank you.
There seem to be two questions there. One was about how many women were employed at high level, and also that 25% were not proud of their workplace.
Yeah, if I start and then Dan can chip in. If we start off with the 75%, we'll take them in order. I've actually got 4 points noted down, but I'll take those in order. So 75% means that they are proud. I think it's worth putting into some context is the number of people that we employ, 6,000 people. And the penetration rate for this survey was actually really positive. We had a really good response back. I think it was, let's say 4,000, but responses back. We also employ an awful lot of casual and part-time employees, and I think that will have a significant impact because those people potentially are working just to earn a few pounds to pay for the night out, because we employ a lot of younger people as well. That said, we're not resting on our laurels, so we've got two groups that are set up. There's a local group, so Dan's got all of his data analysis from the staff survey, and we'll be taking local action, but we've also have started, in fact our first meeting was a month or so ago, a corporate group which is around colleagues, and the staff survey, the colleague survey was a significant part of that. I actually sit on that group myself, as well with our HR director and representatives from all of our regions and areas, and the driver for that is how can we improve it, what can we do better, partly how can people be more proud, but actually how can we reward them better, not necessarily financially, but how else can we reward them, how can we develop them and train them. So I'm actually confident those scores should increase. I'm not taking them to be as negative perhaps as you are. I guess the question is, if you're in a work environment, if you had that survey in your own employment, what do you think the scores would be? Or indeed, what are those scores if you have done that survey? We can only compare with our own, and we've done these surveys for a number of years, and the scores are on par. And I think actually coming out of the years that we've had recently, holding our own, which is where we are, in our staff survey, we're actually quite pleased with, because it gives us a good base to build from. But we're not resting on laurels, and there is work happening. In terms of the breakdown of male-female, 50% of our colleagues are female, so we're heavily female, and on our male-female pay gap is a high proportion of pay is for females, are our higher earners. To put that into context, that is primarily because of our studio instructors. The majority of our group exercise class instructors are female, not all of them, but the majority, and that has a higher rate of pay than the majority of our jobs that we employ. So we've got the data there. We're very conscious at a very senior level that we don't have enough females, and that is a real focus for us. But our focus has equally been to make sure we employ the right people. A good example is that we've just recently employed for a regional health and safety manager, which is a relatively senior job for us. Had I think 20 applicants, and I think 2 of those were female, both internal actually, which is positive. That gives an idea of the flavour of the challenge that we face as well, and that's from an area not necessarily directly in leisure. So we do try to promote within, and the successful candidate for that job was an internal promotion actually, but not female, and that is a challenge. But we recognise that, we acknowledge it, and we're doing our best to appeal more to different people, to make sure that we're sort of offering a flexibility that might be needed for some people within the employment as a sort of a key focus, because that's one thing we can offer, because we are here 7 days a week, 17 hours a day, and that's an advantage over a lot of other businesses.
Just with
Andy.
regards to the the senior roles as well. I think of the 3 roles that we've recently recruited to National Aquatics Business Manager, Healthy Community Manager, and a Commercial Manager. 2 out of those 3 roles are actually at females and senior level, which form part of the SLT, the Senior Leadership Team. So, yeah, I think we're conscious of that as an organisation, is to promote for more female employees.
Thanks, Andy. And the other 2 points were more statements in terms of the marketing and the public health, which we take on board and acknowledge. Absolutely, we need to do more in marketing. We always do. Even if we're doing loads, we still need to do more. And the public health thing, I think we talked, and I've mentioned about the mental health link, but through Hannah in our Healthy Communities lead, absolutely there's a strong focus on engaging the community, as I sort of alluded to in the presentation. But Dan might want to cover more of that.
Just want to use that as an example. In Whittlesea is the example you gave. In terms of, I think we need to explain a little bit, whilst we're behind where we thought we would be when we predicted the fitness members numbers back in 2017, 2018, we are behind those. There's no getting away from that, because that assumed growth like that, let's say. What we're having is it dipped off, but we're now growing like that. So it's a steeper growth. We are growing, and Whittlesea is a great example of that, off the back of the things that you suggested would help us do that. The housing, for example, new developments. There's a lot more people coming to Whittlesea than we anticipated. So Whittlesea is actually growing quicker than the other venues. And in terms of the income derived by our memberships, Whittlesea is now the highest earner, for want of a better description, because of the housing, because of our marketing approach. So that I just wanted to kind of provide confidence that we are recovering quicker than, we're growing at a quicker rate than we anticipated originally, but we're still behind the curve. But it is happening, it is working. The other point that you were talking about was the public health. Sorry, I'm on this one. I'm talking. Bro, is that better? Great. The public health statement that you made, absolutely 100% agree with that. Hence why I've put it on as an opportunity for us to grow into this year. The success we've seen just down the road is off the back of that relationship we have through the leisure services and the public health. We're using those learnings to create a model, in essence, that we can lift and bring into this partnership. And those conversations have already started with Phil. We've started our networking activities with Hannah, our Health Communities lead, is coming down to Fenland soon to meet with me and Phil with explore the options that are available to us, because you're absolutely right, it's there, ready for the taking. And that's why I put it on the presentation, because we absolutely 100% believe that is a growth opportunity for us that will only support the membership growth as well as the other bits. I think that was it in terms of that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I note that, am I correct in saying that you have taken note of the points I have made, and our minutes are very accurate, and I would like to use those as a reference point for your next year's presentation, hopefully, and hope to see substantial progress in those. So I wouldn't delve any deeper into those at this moment. Just a quick point about the staff satisfaction again. I know if you have 6,000, you have a large number of people working there, but that doesn't really mitigate the dissatisfaction percentage. If anything, it kind of aggravates. If it is 6,000, that means there are 2,000, 1/4 or 1,500 people who are not satisfied. I'll just end this by saying, you know, if you have happy staff, you will have a very successful company. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
I'll only come back if I could, and that's absolutely why colleagues is one of our top 4 objectives as a business, and that's why it's in there for that very reason, because everything we do is delivered through our colleagues.
Councillor Gowler.
Thank you. Firstly, thanks for the presentation. kind of relating to what we've just talked about here, I'll pick up on a question from my colleague, Councillor Carney, who's passed his apologies on for this meeting. I think it's important. The statistics within the report that you showed, is that Freedom staff across all leisure centres, or is this just Fenland?
Neither. It's for the area. So that's the 3 partnerships locally that I look after. We have got the detail now for Fenland, and that's what we're using to target our improvement plans.
Thank you. And if I can move separately on to that and just expand on that a little bit. Do you do any...
Just on that point, if I can, if you've got the stats for Fenland, what does that tell you against what's in the presentation? Can you give us a quick overview? Because I think that would probably be pertinent to what else we had asked.
Largely, as I said in the presentation, largely the same, slightly improved. So it, rather than it being 24.5%, it's 18% for Fenland, for example. We've got and it varies venue from venue as well. So we've got that detail. We'll provide that to
so we've actually got a better situation.
Slightly better.
Yeah.
But yeah, tiny.
5%.
So what's on the screen that we'll put up there is
still quite a sizable improvement.
Reflective, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, this my next question moves on from this nicely, actually. So, bearing in mind you got the stats for individual areas, do you do any other benchmarking on any of your stats? To be honest, maybe with the private sector that you've already mentioned to compare yourselves.
Not so much on the colleague survey, because we've got our consistency. We benchmark internally against our previous answers. It's our own survey that we've developed over time that relates specifically to freedom. I'm sure there's bits that we can pick out in terms of we can align how proud people are with another question, I'm sure, from another organisation. We haven't done that as yet. Doesn't mean to say we can't and we shouldn't, and that might be something that comes out of the working group, but we do align it with what we've asked. We try not to change the questions very much every year. We've actually had a change of HR director this year, but consciously kept the questions similar so that we can then track back. So Dan, for example, can track back through the number of years. We had a gap, obviously, during COVID with surveys, but other than that, we've got 3 or 4 surveys that we can refer back to and see that progression or decline, and then to build from there. The only other point I would add that whilst 18% is a lot better than 25%, that won't change our focus corporately, because we still think there's lots that we can do, and I think there's always a couple of sites and that might stand out and that might relate to the leadership locally, as opposed to leadership sort of on a wider scale, but there's still lots we can do, so we accept that challenge already.
Thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming out today. And great presentation. One of the questions I want to ask you is that you touched upon a member of staff that went off as a personal trainer and took some of your people, and you know you're in an industry where you look after people, so you need good people to look after those people. What proportion of your budget is allocated to training? And the second half of my question is, what are your plans for succession planning to ensure that Fenland has got the people in there to make sure that its contract is fulfilled?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's almost like you're in the room for our colleague working group. Because that's some of the key areas for us. I think importantly to note that the member of staff that is set up as a PT, I still employ her husband, and we have a very good relationship. As an aside, in terms of colleague development, which I think was the main part of that sort of question, we were, prior to COVID, we had a development plan. So 2 phases of our development plan, which was about getting to duty manager kind of level, which is a keyhold level within our centres, and then getting to centre manager or area manager at Dan's level. They've fallen off the focus coming through COVID and then energy crisis. However, we've now got those back on our agenda, and that progression is absolutely key for us. We do have a desire internally. We try to promote and develop from within, but we need to structure that more formally now. We had it. We then need to have it. And what we need to have is a clear plan for all of our colleagues that want a career in leisure. Where's their next step? And actually, that might not always be promotion. You know, some people may have a desire to work less hours, give back more to the community, and might want to become a GP referral instructor. But we can work with all of those individuals through our training. The other part was on training. I can't, off the top of my head now, I can't answer your question about percentage of investment in training. However, we obviously have to pay as an organisation of our size into the apprentice levy, the training levy. So we pay into the central government pot over £140,000 a year, which we can then draw down for training, which we're doing. I'm not sure how many apprentices we have locally, but we have over 100 across the business and growing. And that's essentially, as we kind of see it, as free training because we've already paid the money. It's that we've paid that tax, if you like. Probably shouldn't call it that, but it felt like it when it was introduced. And so it's our job to draw down on that funding as well. But in addition, we still have our internal training department. So Freedom Leisure Training is a department that we've had from day one as a business. They coordinate all of our standardised training and also some of our developmental training, fitness instructors, swimming instructors, GP referral, health and safety, pool plant, national pool lifeguard, all of these other training courses that we have. And then finally, our other key area for training is we have an online portal that every member of our staff has a login and access to. Actually, funny enough, I was looking at it yesterday. I've always referred to it as us having about 40 courses available. I actually counted them yesterday. We've actually got 79 courses that are available. Some of those are really short, sort of 12-minute sort of sessions just on real specific subjects, and some of those are 4-hour courses. They're all online. All of our colleagues, whilst they have to complete some of those courses, our corporate induction, for example, health and safety, or environmental, there's other courses that aren't compulsory, but they're available for them to complete if they wish. So there's lots of opportunity for people to develop in that way. I'm not sure I fully answered your question, but hopefully it gives you an overview of our approach.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I just want to pick up on some points you made there. You said after COVID that plan fell by the wayside, and it is in development. How far down that development path are you? Is it, or it's on the table, we'll have a look at it, or is it, this is a concrete plan that we've got? And my second element of that is that how much of it is local employment, because it's important to Fenland that we retain some of those people within Fenland. It helps our economy. And this question you don't need to answer, you can come back to us. I'd be interested to know how many apprentices within Fenland you are actually taking on board.
I'll come back.
Dan will come back on the apprentice question because we will have that detail. In terms of how far down the line, as I said, the working group that was recommenced a month ago, so it's early stages. However, the plan, what we're delivering was actually really good. It's just when we had reduced staff, reduced resources, we're losing a significant amount of money as a result of either COVID or utilities. It wasn't possible, it wasn't practical to deliver. So it's there, but it is only at the early stages because that group has only just convened for the first time, say a month or so ago. But the bulk of what we want to deliver is what we've done before. It will be modernised and updated, and we might deliver it in a slightly different way. Some of that was online, some of it was face-to-face. That might not be the right way to go going forward. So we're not starting from scratch, but we're at the early stages. And absolutely that will be as Fenland focused as it would be any other contract. Every contract, when we did these before, we stipulated, I guess, without being sort of too strict about it, that we needed participants from every contract. And so we will have some people through. I know that Dan will have some people that he want to put through some developmental training to keep them within the organisation. And so Fenland's will have as much focus as every contract will. And hopefully we'll see some success through that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any more questions? Oh. Councillor Barber.
Hi, thank you. I'm pleased to note that you've had a reduction in spend on energy, and I did note that I think it was Dan who said this doesn't mean turning things down. However, talking specifically about the Hudson Centre, I am continuing to receive complaints that the water is too cold. Just wondering if one has an impact on the other?
Go for it. They're two different things. Off the back of the energy crisis, we reset some parameters for business continuity. So we did take temperatures down, and we did receive relatively very few comments across the board, but of the few we had, mainly at Hudson because of the body of water. We've since adjusted those parameters. We're back within what we call normal range for a tank of that size, but don't link that directly to all the reduction. That would undermine all the work that we've done over here in terms of the technology, the people, training, the process procedure. So it's not just we've turned the temperature down, the pool's cold, we're getting complaints. They're two separate things.
I think the reality is that we, as an industry, would have had pool temperature complaints historically, because some people will complain it's too hot. And actually, if you go into any of our pools, except for one, which is an outside pool in Guildford, where people won't complain about the temperature because that's just what they like. 23 degrees, I think we're keeping it at. So it's lovely for some, not for me. But some will want, the people that swim up and down would say it's too hot. The people that don't swim up and down, maybe do a length, have a chat, come with their families, they might say it's too cold. And we've always had that because of the energy crisis and some of the actions that we've taken as an industry, and it's not just Freedom Leisure, it is an industry-wide. People now align the two a bit more directly. But the reality is, as long as I've worked in leisure, which is 30 years, that there will be some complaints one way or the other. It's just the reality, unfortunately. And we need to do our best to find the balance, and that's what I think we've done. So when Dan said we had taken the pool temperature down, we have now increased that. That's just trying to find the balance. So it'd be interesting to know how recent some of those comments are. But there is always going to be an issue there, I think.
It was mainly families who were, adults with families who were saying, excuse me, that the water was too cold. So I don't know if you can work out what times, families go rather than what time, adults might go at 7 o'clock for a good swim.
Yeah, it takes us about a day to change a temperature by 1 degree in the pool. So it's not something we can tweak for every session, unfortunately. Yeah.
Just looking at your comments from users, I noted that one was complimentary, but also said, was there a chance of you opening at 6 instead of 6:30? And I did wonder whether you'd taken, taken that on.
Yeah, taken on review. I look at the opening with the managers. I look at the opening times, the timetables, and we will be making changes into this year off the back of those as well. It has to be data driven as well. If it's just one person, we won't open it for that one person. But if there's a need, for instance, Chatteris does get quite a lot of comments in terms of I'd like to go to the gym a bit earlier, so we're very much considering that, and it's not only a numbers game. It's around the customers in that community, because the community that do exercise in Chatteris have now got far more options than they did before. So we just need to make an informed decision, but it's very much a live, active agenda item for me and the guys.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. Well, my comments are going to be of a similar nature. So last year, 26th of June meeting, I raised the point that we'd previously requested more detailed complaints data. This presentation is following the same format as previously, so I'm a little bit concerned you're not taking on board our feedback of what we're requesting. You've made several comments about the fact that you're data driven, and what I've asked for on these two occasions is that we have more data around what the complaints are, because then it will demonstrate the points that you've just raised around getting feedback, how you act on it, how you improve the service for customers. So I'm a little bit annoyed to say that we're still not getting that. So, and I think Councillor Noaz has made the point he's going to look at the minutes again next year. So can you make sure next year we get some decent complaints data? I know previously you said that you've got the processes in place. It's some of it you deal with fairly quickly. It's not registered as a formal complaint. I get that, because that will be sort of quick and easy wins, as it were. But it's more about analysing what the trends are, what people are saying, and then sort of, you know, taking what action. So if you do get the one complaint from, you know, one user, you can say, well, actually, it's not proportionate to change our operating based on that. But the Chatter's example is a good example. You know, people saying, you know, they want to open it, and actually it could be to beneficial and financial gain for all of us. So yeah.
Yeah. Firstly, apologies, because you're absolutely right. You have covered it before. I have to say, in hindsight now, I don't think this necessarily is the right forum to present all of our stats, but we provide those to the officers. We're absolutely happy for those to be shared. So I think if we were to separately distribute those to you via Phil, we're very happy to share that data and take questions at the next meeting, or actually during, because, you know, as in during the year, it's not an issue for us. No problem sharing them. It probably wouldn't come across very well on here, but we can get those data across. We'll put them into a format that's probably more user-friendly. It's not that user-friendly that we get, and we can share those on maybe even a quarterly basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's more the themes, what people are saying, and, you know, actions you're taking, particularly if there's a high number of people making the same issue. I mean, previous years we've highlighted the complaints that we've received, I think particularly social media, about lack of maintenance and issues and how long it's taking to fix things. There's not been much comment about that this year. I think there's still a bit of an issue in the background there from what we're told on social media, but I think the situation is probably improving. But again, we don't have the data to be able to look at that and sort of say, you know, are we getting a better situation?
Okay, well, if we commit to giving you Q1 data within a month of today, and we're happy to share that information. It will come via Phil and colleagues, and go from there.
Thank you very much.
Just one quick question, please. Is there any update on the Whittlesea Manor Leisure Centre, please?
I think that question probably needs to go to FDC rather than Freedom.
So the council's working with a company called Alliance Leisure. They've been round the 3 larger leisure centres that have swimming pools. We've got some draft plans. We've sent them away to redraft them. And once we have that information, that'll be discussed at CMT, and we expect to be at Cabinet with those in September, October.
Are there any more questions?
Thank you, Chair. Now, given that the buildings that you're operating out of are owned by FDC, you're obviously using subcontractors and contractors to go in and carry out works that are necessary. And given that they may have done risk assessments, it doesn't always transpire that the people who are doing the job may have had the right training. I'd be interesting to learn what your policies and procedures are for vetting those subcontractors that you have go in to do any remedial works. Thank you.
Sure. I'm assuming this relates to the incident at the manor, which is fair enough. The policies and procedures are comprehensive, but in that particular instance, it was a subcontractor, and who will no longer be used, just for the record. And we've dealt with that formally with the main contractor, somebody we work across the business, actually installing energy saving devices and fans, essentially. So a bit frustrated that happened. They were extremely apologetic and frustrated as well. In terms of our policies and procedures, absolutely full vetting, full procurement process of insurances, RAMs, everything that should be in place. The right things were in place, they just weren't followed by the subcontractor, and there's only so much we can do to sort of second guess that. But from our perspective, our investigation that we completed, in fact, our head of health and safety, who happens to live in Whittlesea, was on site that day and reacted and dealt with that and carried out a full investigation immediately. And the conclusion being actually what we've got in place is fine. It was around that person not following the process and procedure that they wrote and put in place, frustratingly.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Any more questions? McFadden.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Hi, thank you for your presentation. You did mention during your presentation that you wanted to work more closely with GPs. I just wanted to know what arrangements you have in place at the moment to work with like primary care providers, as well as do you have anything in place right now? Is it like a future plan? And if it's a future plan, when is it? When do you hope to bring it into practice? Thank you.
First part of the question, very limited at the minute. We do have contact with a small number of GPs and they do refer to us. So that's the first bit, very few. Future plans, in terms of what we're speaking about today, yes, those future plans are already in place. They're growing, and that's what I was referring to before. And that's off the back of success in a neighbouring, another partnership that I look after. It's boomed in essence, especially over the last 3 months. So I'm in open dialogue with Phil saying, this is something we can do here. Phil has great networks in the area. Our head of healthy communities is from the area, so I've also got those established links. It's very much on their agenda, and I think it's in the next couple of weeks, Hannah's coming down specifically to have conversations around those. And a lot of that will be a model lift tweaked to us, specifically for Fenland. And it's all about the relationship with those medical practitioners that do refer to us. We've got the processes in place. We've got, in essence, the marketing ready to go. We've got the expertise. We've got the experience. It is an opportunity that I'm very comfortable and confident that this time next year we'll be reporting as a huge success.
I'll just add to that slightly. We have just signed a national agreement with Xyla Health, who are a UK-wide organisation that are set up purely for health referrals. That's relating to a swimming project that we're doing to try and drive more people into swimming. But that's a good example where we're sort of working with other bodies on a UK-wide basis as well as a local basis. Obviously, they're tapping into the local market and local surgeries to get referrals. But where we think somebody can probably either make it happen quicker or do it better, we are engaging with those groups as well.
Are there any further questions? No? Well, then I'd like to say thank you to the Freedom team. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the additional information that we've taken on board this morning, and also for answering all the questions. Thank you very much indeed. So the next item on the agenda can be found at pages 27 to 36 of the agenda pack, and is an annual report which sets out the work that has been undertaken by the Overview and Scrutiny panel during 23-24. The report sets out a wide range of activities undertaken by the panel last year, and I'd like to thank all of you for your contributions to that. I will be presenting the report to a future meeting of full council, subject to any questions or comments that you might have, please. Are there any questions? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. Under 5.3 regarding the task and finish group and the new data that's obviously been put into the reporting, would it not be prudent to add a line that we're going to be monitoring that going forward, and it will help us in the work of the committee, because that was really the whole point of it, wasn't it?
Oh, that's an excellent idea, and that one we will do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions on the annual report? Councillor Nawaz?
Thank you. Just an observation on page, well, it's not a page, doesn't give you the number, 4.5, the table of topic and issues. We did cover a number of these very successfully and very usefully. A good example would be the on the Anglian water presentation, if I have the right page. No, it isn't the right page. 4.2, 2. A very good session on question and answer, water supply, treatment and flooding in Fenland. However, the last item, review of care partnership provision, as I recall it, at least to me, and I made that abundantly clear at the time, was not a particularly satisfactory presentation. And I recall I had requested a presentation that was properly equipped and with a team comprising public health expert, someone who knew about the finances and budget, and with some public health knowledge. The presentation we had was a gentleman who just came, sat, and I think I made my irritation very clear. Didn't seem to be too interested in what this committee wanted to elicit from him or to establish. And I did become aware that there was a presentation from an ICS later on, an all-member presentation, which unfortunately I couldn't attend because I had another meeting. So is there a possibility of having such a presentation, please?
Yeah, Chairman, I mean, this report is about, all it's saying is these people have come before this committee. Yeah. It's not saying whether we liked what was provided or not. I agree with the point, but I think that's an action for when we probably look at the work programme going forward, because we did also say about getting the Director of Public Health in at the same time, because there was a lot of, they're doing this, that's not our responsibility between both presentations. So, I think the report is okay, but I think that's what we need to put in the future works programme, which is absolutely
I agree. And I agree. And the presentation was quite weak, but there weren't many questions asked by this committee. Maybe because the presentation was weak, it didn't offer up the notion of what you wanted to drill down to. But I mean, we can look to try and put something in the. We've got it in March 25, so we can look at what we need for that presentation, and then perhaps invite the appropriate people.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. That is exactly a request for this presentation to be repeated, rather than a criticism of the report itself. Thank you.
I suppose just recognising that presentation, that was the first time that particular body come before us, and I don't think they knew what necessarily we wanted, and but again, it's this crossover with Director of Public Health where we need to get this collaborative working and get the fuller picture of what's happening. So
we can look at that in March. So yeah. Any more questions on the annual report? No. Of the agenda pack. The future work programme sets out the planned business for the panel for the forthcoming municipal year. Are there any questions or suggestions in relation to the future work programme which are not currently being discussed?
it's not really the work programme, but it's tracking between each year when these bodies come to us that they provide what we asked for in the previous year. And I think Councillor Nawaz has sort of made the point. I've made the point about complaints data. I wonder if we ought to just have a separate log around, what we're expecting from those organisations, for when they come before us again, and this would cover off, I think, the concern that Councillor Noyes has got about the public health thing, because then we can make sure that when we get these presentations, it's actually in the format that we're looking for, and we don't have to sort of say, you still haven't provided it after so many years.
I agree, and I think what we need to do is to you know, when we're coming up to doing the agenda for a meeting, is to actually backtrack through the minutes and then pick up the things that they didn't do this time, so that we can tell them they must cover it this time. Yeah, okay.
I guess I'm
Amy's
saying if it's like a log, you can tick it off that it's been done, whereas the minutes are obviously, I think sometimes it gets lost in some of the the wording. So
Amy's saying that they do get a copy of the minutes and that, but I take your point. If we give them an itemised, you know, these are things that you didn't answer last time, and please will you be prepared to answer them this time? So yeah, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on the work programme that Clarion haven't been called in. Now, at the last meeting, they did suggest to us that, you know, everything was being dealt with. Now, I'm coming across a number of complaints from residents who are repeating similar problems that we've reported. I think their perception of what actually goes on as to compared to what is happening out there in the field is completely different. They haven't addressed the wardens that they have several times. You know, I've reported things direct to Sally, and wardens haven't gone out. So I think maybe not a full meeting from Clarion, but to address issues that have come up since the last meeting would be helpful.
So Amy's advice is that obviously we don't bring the same people back year on year on year, because we've got to make space for new subjects to cover. If you are having difficulty in actually handling issues, then we can actually go to Clarion and say, well, this and this, without necessarily calling them in for a meeting. Yeah. So if you notify us if there are repetitive things that are just not being done, in your opinion, we can take it up with them. Councillor Booth.
I mean, are we not going to invite Clarion back next year? I thought that was an annual returning thing. Is that what you're saying, or?
Amy will.
So obviously when we had one of our meetings, probably not the last one, but earlier this year, we talked about the forward plan and the fact that we wanted to get some new items within it, and there simply isn't room to have new items as well as all of the items that come back annually. So we reviewed the list and thought about which ones could be biannual and which ones would have to be annual. And we focused obviously annually on looking at the council's core priorities and making sure that as an organisation we're sort of delivering on those functions. And Clarion was one of the presenters identified, because we'd had them last year, as one that we might not need to have absolutely annually. But if there are problems emerging, as you've raised today, then obviously we do have some space that we've deliberately kept towards the end of the year, so that we can put new things in or bring things back in. So I think it's important, if you see that something's gone missing from the list as an annual event, that if there are issues, that you obviously raise them as you have, and we can think about how we address them. But it was really designed to try and make sure that we can fit in new things as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I would say Clarion's not one that we should be putting biannually, given the issues that the council has experienced over a number of years. You know, be it to the issues with maintenance during winter, to just being able to answer questions. I mean, you know, I raised a concern about their responses aren't dealt with in a timely manner. They need a better mechanism. We've not heard anything better or anything else that's presented forward regarding that. So my recommendation is that Clarion, particularly with the number of people it affects in the district and the impact it has, is one that continues to be annual.
Are other members in agreement with Clarion being an annual?
Yes, I am. I have a lot of queries and complaints from people, yeah.
Okay, well that does seem, hang on, just a minute. It does seem that there is a consensus of opinion that it should be on, so Amy will look at the back end of the forward planning, and we have got space. We deliberately left space so we can fit that in. Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Senate Clough.
I'd like to come in now because it actually concerns Clarion. So obviously there's a distinction between Clarion and Clarion Futures, and we need to be clear who we're actually referring to. But my point was going to be about, given their public-facing reputation and the fact that they are just, from a couple of months ago, it's my understanding that they are fronting a not insignificant amount of money to match fund with the Arts Council, and the Arts Council are part of the Future Work programme. So I have concerns around the type of instance that you're referring to, and how that will play out in the public consciousness regarding complaints, but then on the other hand, this idea that they can support, like I said, a not insignificant amount of money, you know, to match fund with the Arts Council. So I'm wondering if there's scope to have them in on that day that the Arts Council come in, or would you prefer to keep the two things separate?
Personally, I think I'd keep them separate. Councillor Booth.
We could just invite Clarion Futures in as part of that Arts Council as opposed to the whole of Clarion, just to concentrate on that one particular element. That would seem to be sensible.
Lucy.
Thank you. It's just a quick one to say, it would be good to be more specific, not to have the Clarion Futures if we are going to be talking about housing and concerns, because they're two kind of different things, which echoes what you guys were saying.
Okay. Questions on the annual? Yes, Councillor Noaz.
It's not a question as such, just a couple of requests. The presentation I referred to from Anglian Water, and for me it has been very useful. I have used the minutes, but from memory in the planning committees and so on. But as memory fades, I wonder if it is possible to have another copy of those minutes, please, so that they can be filed away for reference. And the second request is, I did ask for this last year as well. I know education is not within the remit of the FTC. However, we do have residents for whom, and for us, it is important. Perhaps we could hold a session on education itself, the educational facilities, and what the inequalities in education in Fenland are, and how they could be addressed. Excellent, thank you.
Point, Chair, just regarding when we've got the meeting on 20th of January. We've got draft budget, draft business plan, fees and charges. I keep making the point that fees and charges needs to come before the other two, because if we're going to make changes to that, it needs to roll into the others technically. So, because if we agree the budget, we can't then say, oh, we need to change the fees and charges if there's any concerns about any of those items.